last night I went into the workshop and I made another backing plate, another captive nut plate for these two bolts here, and we've held it in place with some Clecos and we've put the bolts in, and I just want to show you the amount of misalignment there was on this tab. If you look down here, we've got about 8mm, maybe 10mm from my cut line to the bottom of the original tab. It's about right, but that is an enormous mistake on behalf of whoever it was that created this cross member. Let me take you over the other side, because the other side will scare you. So here we are on the other side, and I did exactly the same. I made up another captive plate, I screwed the bolts in. This is the original tab that was cut off, and as you can see, not only is it out in the vertical plane by about 4 or 5 mil, it's out in the horizontal plane by about 4 or 5 mil. So the next job for me is going to be to grind this flush, repair the little divots that I put in with the grinder, and weld these tabs back on. So I've got my angle grinder, I've got it loaded with a flap disc, a 60 grit flap disc. It's not brand new, but it's close to brand new. I'm going to put my safety glasses on, my hearing protection, and we're going to see what we can do about this. I'm not sure whether to fill that in or not. Let's do the other side, see how it fares up. So I've brought these plates into the workshop just to clamp them in the vise, and we're just going to take this paint off. Now this glass reinforced chassis paint is just a nightmare to try and weld through, and if you've ever tried it, you'll see in the arc the glass, you'll see the particles as you try and weld through it, so it's got to come off. I've got to have a nice clean surface to weld with. So we're back over at the tub and the rear cross member. We've got all this cleaned up and prepped for welding. What I don't have though, which I didn't think about until just now, is a decent earth, and the reason for that is that this car has been stripped right down to the bare chassis, and during that process, when it was starting to be reassembled, it was painted. It had 2 coats of Corollas S2, and you can just see the pink showing through under the black, and then it had a coat of the chassis reinforced, glass reinforced chassis paint, and then on the main part of the chassis it had shuts over the top of that. So I'm quite reluctant to grind back a bit of bare metal on the chassis to get an earth. So what I've come up with is a long M8 bolt, which I'm going to screw into here, and that's going to be my earth point. But before I tighten these down, what I want to do is get a ruler across here and just make sure that that is as square as I'm going to be able to get it. I spent all this time adjusting these tabs. I might as well get them as aligned as I perfectly can. So let me clamp down that bolt. Now the wind's picking up and I'm about to fire up the welder, and I haven't got a massive amount of gas left, I don't think, so hopefully we can get this done. So what I want to do is just get a span on there, tighten it on, and that's going to be my earth point for welding onto here. So once I've got a tack in there, I should have continuity on my current. I should be able to zip all the way around, and that actually prevents me from filling in these divots. And I think to be honest, I might be able to just cover them up with a bit of weld as we go around. Either way, it doesn't matter that much. This is an old Land Rover at the end of the day. So let me get a spanner and I'll just tighten that up and we'll zip a bit of weld around it. So I'm just going to check. All I'm doing is I'm going for the center tab across and making sure my height's correct and that this is level. Okay, if I can get a tack on there and there, then I might have to just bring this around slightly with the hammer. Let's do that. Let's get a tack on there. So we're getting setting up for welding, and usually on the MIG I'd weld at something like 15 CFH on my gas, but we're outside and it's a bit breezy, so I've notched it up to 20. I'm hoping I don't run out of gas because I don't want to have to take a trip over to the welding shop today. So I've got a bit of a problem trying to get a clamp around here to hold that tight against that cross member. So I've got a piece of wood. I'm going to use it like a stock on a gun, put it into my shoulder and just push on it just to make that initial tack. Now that I've got those initial tacks on, I'm just going to see if I can just give that a little touch with a hammer just to bring it in without breaking the tack, and then we'll zip around it. I don't know if you can see the smoke coming out of here, but we got wax on the inside of this, so we need to be careful we don't have a fire. I'm just going to wait for that to cool off a bit. I think I need a bit of overhead practice with the MIG. That's not as pretty as it should be, but it'll hold. Sounds like it's going to storm tonight. Wind's picking up, and I'm fighting it here, trying to get it finished before the darkness sets in. And there we have it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.